Welcome to Around the Reel with your hosts, Aaron Carlson, Charles Lawson, and Samantha Hanna. Ah, shit. Here we go again. There he is.
Hi, guys. How are you?
Hey.
Hello. Good.
How's it going today, buddy?
Good. Very nice to meet you both. How are you?
Oh, it's very nice to meet you, and we're doing well.
We are doing well.
All three of you.
Yeah.
It's good to finally meet you.
There you go.
That is right. Can you hear everybody okay on your end?
Yeah, I can hear. I haven't heard from Chuck yet.
Well, I'm hot.
Yeah, you are.
That's because
That's a little
I talk
high.
subliminally
Can you
throughout
talk
the
Yeah,
today?
show, so that way I just drop the low notes in there so everybody hears the weird things coming through everybody.
That's okay.
Well, it's very nice to meet you, and thank you for having me on your podcast show
Thank you
tonight.
for coming
I was
on.
really looking forward to Pacific Northwest Contact. I've been on so many of them, and this is the first one actually in our own region. So thank you. I'm
Oh.
looking forward
Well,
to it.
it's
Wonderful to have you.
Yeah, we're
Absolutely.
blessed to have you.
Yeah, it's
Thank
our
you.
pleasure. Thank you, buddy. Yeah, it's Dr. Hal Bradley.
It is.
All right.
I'm Dr. Hal Bradley, and I'm a senior chaplain for the Full Gospel Pentecostal Federated Church Association here in the United States. Primarily, I'm an author, putting out books right now, but I work with the homeless and destitute, the addicted and the afflicted in our communities here in the Everett and Seattle area. I'm in my 20th year of doing it.
Wow.
I'm also a retired Department of Justice contractor. I retired in 2018 after 17 years of working high-end cases down in Central America and Mexico. And
Yeah.
Wow.
yeah, just
You've got
You're
a.
just your run-of-the-mill Joe.
Yeah, he's just
You're
a normal
a
guy.
Yeah, just average.
Well,
yeah, it was a real surprise. I got recruited by the Department of Justice while I was in federal prison. I was in 1989 to 1993. I was the largest cocaine trafficking organization in this part of the world, and I was directly tied to a guy that I knew named El Chapo Guzman. I don't know if you know the name.
I know the name. Yeah.
But yeah, I was since 1969 in my childhood years. I grew up around the cartels and that various lifestyle. And after military service, I went back down there and started smuggling marijuana. And then around 1979, it turned into cocaine. And all of a sudden, we're all flying jets and driving brand new cars and living in mansions. And
Holy moly.
This is
Yeah.
a movie.
life took a turn.
Yeah, dude, this is a movie.
Please tell me
Yeah,
someone's
yes.
making a movie out of your
Yeah,
life.
Voyage Media Corporations have me under contract now for 7 months. The work just got completed with a screenplay writer and a producer. They now have it in custody and getting ready to put it out to the market to like Netflix and Showtime and
Nice.
all of those. And I'm very confident that I'm going to end up with a TV series.
Yours
I'm
is
very
literally one of
excited.
the most interesting stories ever.
Yeah, it is. It's intimidating. Hal, can I call you Hal, or are you like Doctor or Mr. Bradley? What would you like?
I go by Dr. Hal or I go by Dr. Bradley.
Okay, I like Dr. Hal.
When
I
I'm
figure,
texting him, I call him Doc.
Okay, that's cool too. Okay,
Hi, Doc.
Took me 13 years to get the title. I might as well use it.
Use
Might
that
as well,
shit.
yeah.
I'd use it.
You earned it.
For
Whatever
sure.
you
For
do.
sure.
Absolutely.
Dr. Hal.
Yeah, you earned it.
So let's go back a little bit so the audience kind of understands what you went through. I mean, you've got a very, very interesting and scary
And powerful.
and powerful story to share
It is.
with everybody here. And yes, we interview artists on this in the program, but I mean, you count. You're an author. You're a writer. You know,
Yeah.
you got
I
stuff
am.
going on. So, but our show is more than that. It's about people and getting through shit. And you got through some shit from what I read.
Like some major.
So please, start somewhere where you think we could follow your story. If you could go back for us a little bit.
I can do that. And thank you for asking that.
Please.
I like to base the writings of my books and soon to be a TV series. It looks like it's based on a sin to redemption scenario. I was a kid in Edmonds High School in 1969, got caught smoking a cigarette. And back at that time, when you got caught doing something like that, they kicked you out for a half a year. And my mother, being a very decent woman, my older brother being in Vietnam at that time, she said, I'm not going to let you wander the streets, but I've got this friend who owns a mining camp down in central Mexico. How would you like to go down there for half a year and check it out? So I ended up going down there and spent a year and a half. But the friend that I made, he was a young son to a very famous cartel that controlled that region of Mexico. And our transportation at the age of 15, when you guys were on bicycles, we were riding burros in the canyons and the mountains up there along the poppy fields where they were growing, acres and acres of poppies. And then the Chowari Indians had their marijuana fields. And in 1969, marijuana was looked at pretty harshly here in the United States.
Yeah.
So that was my exposure. And then they said, aquí en su corazón vive la sangre de la ciudad. In my heart pumped the blood of that village. And so after my brother was shot in Vietnam, I came back stateside, went to Edmonds Community College, got my GED. And from that point on, I entered into the United States Army, did my 3 years, got out honorably in March 74. And I was a paratrooper by the time I was 17 years old.
Wow.
I mean, I had wings on my chest, jumping out of planes. And so the thing is there was a commitment and a dedication to that, whichever you put yourself into. And you need to align with that early on in life. So I assessed that the training that I received at that time was a great foundation for becoming an international smuggler and later a distributor here stateside, setting up transportation routes and safe houses, distribution points. I was moving a quarter to a third of a ton of cocaine, living in Granite Falls, Washington, a month easily, sometimes up to a half of a ton of cocaine in a month. So it was quite an experience.
I would say so, Hal. So my man was a drug smuggler and runner. Is that what we're talking about? Wow.
Yeah, I spent 6 years smuggling narcotics into the United States, and then because of me being blonde hair, blue-eyed, familiar with the region, I was a trusted child from the village. Sure. They knew me from my corps, so they thought it better. In '79, by then I was flying planes. In '79, I quit flying internationally and was just doing like California to Washington State routes, things to that nature. But we formed one hell of an organization. I mean, at one time when DEA got wind on me and started really looking into it, it was phenomenal. They had no idea that there was that amount of weight being moved through this part of the country at the time.
I bet. Now, were you still in the military during this time, or were you already out?
No, I was not.
Okay.
I was retired. Yeah. I got out in March of 1974.
Okay, that's right. Okay, so
I have a question.
Yeah, I was thinking it was like Air America or something. You know what I mean? With Mel Gibson back in the day.
We had a little bit of that going on.
Okay, all right, all right. Go ahead,
Sam.
Sam.
You had said previously that your brother was shot. Now, did he pass away when he was shot, or did he survive?
No, he did survive. He ended up doing 23 years in the Marine Corps, retired out, and he lives in an undisclosed site outside of the United States.
Your whole family, they're badasses. Jesus.
Yeah, what a
man. Okay.
I think, guys, Aaron, the most important thing that I'm trying to deliver in this communication with you three tonight and to your audience is you can go from one major extreme way of life and catapult yourself into another. And what you do is you can progress into this other as a result of surviving experiences. I'm a crisis authority counselor, and I'm copyrighted and trademarked to deal with people that have survived extreme crisis events, came out of challenges. I was assassinated 2 years ago out here on my back. I got hit by the cartel and left for dead. And I thought I was dead. I laid there in the last knife strike into my skull. I knew that was a death blow, and I just went ahead and accepted my death. And I can't even begin to tell you how peaceful that was and how wonderful. And I'm a certified hospice counselor. I became that when I was in federal prison. And my job in federal prison was to take prisoners through the dying process. Yeah. Wow. And all the time I spent in those rooms taking prisoners through the process was my seminary years where I did my studies. So to say the least, that talk about humbling.
No,
you're laying there cramming like crazy as a full-blown student in a death room where this guy's getting ready to take off. I took 24 prisoners through the process during that time.
My goodness, what an unbelievable
it's
if there's an extreme
it was a blessing.
Yeah,
it was. And the last year I was transferred to Leavenworth Federal Prison, and while I was in Leavenworth, the Department of Justice got a hold of me, got me back before a judge, got me out of prison a couple of years early, and signed me on as a contractor. They knew that I wasn't some rat that got caught and arrested and told on all of his friends.
Right.
When everything fell to pieces, I walked in on my own free will and knew that this was the time to strike.
Right.
And the strike scenario was I had already agreed to be removed from that lifestyle. If you ever go to Snohomish County Records and look my name up, you would see the massive amount of life that I had acquired and constructed. It's all on record.
Yeah.
But I'd hit my point where it was my time to walk away from it. Took down, as the book explains, I handed him $1 million in cash for my payout. And I was told, you're gone. I got back home and found a van load of kilos and 2 soldados sitting in my driveway. So I turned it around to keep them out of the problem. The next day I walked into the U.S. Attorney's office and said, I know you've been looking at me. Here I am.
Man.
And so I just got a bigger baseball bat and I went against that, which wasn't going to give me my life and my freedoms. I wasn't some punk sitting out on a street corner ratting off all of his buddies to make a deal with the law. Prior to that, I'd been in Folsom Prison in California. I was sentenced to 3 years down there on a coke bust, and kept my mouth shut, did my time, walked out like a real man. You do what you got to do. But this was different. This was control, and it was control of disproportionate design, if you will.
Yeah.
So I was honored that they came to me to the federal prison and offered me the credential. I'm also a Washington State licensed private investigator. The name of my company was Surveillance Services Northwest. This is awarded to me after, probably 8 or 10 years of working operations in Central and South America. I just wanted to get away from it and go back into the domestic sector and, work L&I cases, divorce cases, stuff like that. So I was tired of getting shot at, getting kidnapped.
Yeah, don't blame you.
I can imagine.
Yeah, go ahead, Chuck.
No, that's what I was going to say. I can imagine you get tired of getting shot at or stabbed or threatened or
say the least.
Yeah,
you can only witness
car backfires and you duck. I mean, it's just those are the things.
Yeah.
Well, there's his story is remarkable, and then the flip and how you turn this all around. We will get to because I think that is why we were also interested in speaking with you because it relates to everybody on different levels, not on your level.
Yeah, I mean,
but people can get something out of this because I mean, you were on like the dark side, man, of like scary shit.
I was
the Mexican drug cartel. I mean, when you step into that kind of place and you're dealing with that kind of people, you weren't afraid at that time?
Yeah.
Did you have any fear?
Aquí de mi corazón son familia. In my heart, they were my family, brother. It wasn't like they were the enemies. The kids I grew up with in that village, the village only had about 200 people, if that.
Okay.
And you were young when you...
Okay.
I'm sorry, what?
You were young, right? When you first went?
Yeah, I was 15 years old when I got introduced to it. And it just as chance occurred, I was able to meet with this kid who was part of the cartel. Their family were very wealthy, very powerful. And they thought it would be educational and good for him to also have an American friend developed in his young years of life. So we connected, and I did spend a lot of time over there at the hacienda. He was always with bodyguards under constant protection. But they had the swimming pool up there in the mountains. We swam in a pond.
Just like I see in Scarface or like Ozark, right? I mean, that's the shit.
Exactly the type of world that I was exposed to early on in life.
Dude.
I can remember in '79, we were bringing a lot of marijuana in the States at that time. And all of a sudden they came up with this cocaine thing because most of the cocaine was running through the Medellin drug cartel going through Florida, and then some of it would filter over into California, and then it would process out from there. Well, all of a sudden the Mexican cartels were activated, and they were actually getting their own loans. Ramon Arellano Felix, have you ever heard of that name?
I haven't heard of that name.
I haven't heard that one, no.
Well, that's a Tijuana cartel. That's the head of the Tijuana. I met him when he was 6 years old, and I was 15, and we used to ride burros together along the poppy fields. I mean, and then he became the largest. He was moving at least 20 tons of cocaine a month through Tijuana.
Now, did you guys ever end up getting into any of those drugs, or was that like a no-no?
Yeah, I went through a period of time, but I got taken down to Mexico, down to Culiacan, where we were based out of, and I was taken up to a ranch with a friend of mine, and they had this guy in this corral, and they put 3 Rottweilers on him, and he ate him. They ate him alive, right?
Oh my God!
And then I got taken into the house, and he says, "Well, you're walking around with all these big wads of money, you're wearing gold chains, and you're buying cars, and you're buying real estate, and you don't have no viable source of income. So let that be a lesson to you." But that's the cartel. Yeah. That's how they gave us many lessons like that.
Yeah,
that's just one. You get in my book, and you will see other lessons. It's a very dangerous world, and I had every reason and desire to get out. I got married to the love of my life and started having children, and I had several legitimate companies by that time, and just it was my desire to walk away. And they didn't want to let that happen. You know, I mean, I'm paying these guys 10, 12, $14 million a month every month.
Right.
And that's just something they didn't want to let go.
No one wants to let go of that kind of income.
Well, no, because and you don't get high on your own supply. You know what I mean? You don't do that. I've seen.
Well, that's what the lesson was. But anytime the cartels teach you a lesson, I assure you, it's always very bloody, very violent.
Yeah, I'd listen. I would listen, no problem.
It just is what it is.
Man,
I walked away from that 28 years ago, and you know, life has been very good since then. The years that I was in federal prison, I put into becoming a student, and I worked in the GED department to help other guys get their high school diplomas, and I was a hospice counselor from almost day one when I hit the medical facility, and so I stayed very busy in there. I didn't lull around, and met a lot of famous prisoners. Actually was a hospice counselor to one of the Dons that was at that time a few years earlier was the Don of Las Vegas. You know, out of the Gambino family, Johnny Gambino and I used to walk the lap track together. So it's kind of a really neat, a neat environment.
In a way, I mean,
he's got the cartels from the South. He's got the mobsters from.
Yeah, it was pretty cool. You know, well, people, when you come into prison, they see your record. They know who you are. And they knew that I was a heavy hitter when I walked in there.
Yeah.
So that afforded me a different type of treatment.
That's how I would feel because I'm a podcaster on Around the Reel. So if I walked in, no, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding.
I'd be cleaning
something. You would certainly get tested.
I would be.
Yeah.
So you ain't kidding, Hal. I'm right with you, dude. I'd be shitting my pants.
It's just life.
Yeah.
I really hope that you guys read book 2. Book 1 is called Crisis Victory.
Yes.
And the foundation of that book was designed to show people how to move and maneuver through severe crisis events.
The horrific stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. And but book number 2 was by demand. I have a lot of people in my following, and they're saying, Pastor Bradley, you've got to write your story.
Yeah.
And I have a lot of documentation to corroborate everything I'm sharing with you can totally be verified.
Oh,
and
there's
so
no doubt.
in book number 2, you'll see that as you go through it. I have pictures, you know, pages photographed of documents and whatever. Pictures of me down there smuggling with my friends. Actually took them back in the 70s. And, you know, we were 21, 22 years old, and we were making $70,000, $80,000 in a day.
My gosh. And
selfies were harder back then.
Yeah, we lived like that for 15 years, you know, and I only spent 6 years running borders, man.
Yeah.
And I got to tell you, I really missed it when I quit. But, you know, my place had elevated to a different stature, and to survive that world, you do what you're told to do.
Yeah, the humility, like you're talking about, especially. And
what did you go on to do when you had your family? What did you go on to do?
That's a wonderful question. You know, I owned 2 antique stores, and like I said, you can look it up in Snohomish County records under my name. It shows everything. But I had antique stores, a feed and grain store, a gas station, 2 restaurants, and lots and lots of. I had, I think, 46 or 47 rentals, and lots of everything. I had a wonderful, amazing life, and I worked 7 days a week diligently. And at nighttime, I worked in my cocaine empire. But I never got high. I wasn't running around being stupid. I had a wife that she's now deceased. My wife passed away with a heart attack, but we raised up children that we loved very much. And then this commitment, this agreement was broken on that side. In the moment of there was no other choice that I had to do to take it on. I didn't think I'd survive it. It was amazing. Yeah. But
it was your business. I mean,
it was my business, and I wasn't always a minister. There was a lot in my heart in those younger years. When you come up, you have to be something, you have to be someone, and you have to be willing to do certain things that I'm not going to get into.
Right. No, you were building an empire, basically, is what he was doing. That's some. Yeah. So let me get this right then. So after being one of the top drug smugglers of narcotics back then.
I was the top up here back then. Not one.
Yeah. Okay, so the top guy.
Downplay the scenario, Carlson.
Yeah, I'm just still wrapping my brain around
the guy.
This is like
hey, no, we need more tonnage. Go.
So you're the top drug smuggler.
That was told to me by DEA. I don't know. That was their, you know, I have no way to confirm, but
absolutely. But they actually come to you because they know you have this inside.
Well, you got to remember, I walked into the U.S. Attorney's office and said, "Here I am. I'm ready to go to war."
But they give you this. They give you this deal. They give you this option.
Oh my God! Yes, they gave me a deal. They just had Hal walk into the U.S. Attorney's office. I mean, that was beyond phenomenal.
Oh, yeah.
I had a high-ranking officer on payroll in the narcotics division in Seattle. I knew all the moves that were going on. Anybody that works like I did, you always have intel coming in from various sources and resources.
What made you do that? What made you make that decision to walk in there?
They wouldn't let it go. I went down, paid for it. I bought my freedom. They broke their deal. And I wasn't about to run around and go rat off people that are selling coke out their backyard. I took on an enemy that had manifested itself into an enemy. And I truly believe a lot of that is the old soldier that comes through us that have been served overseas. And like we did in those early years of life.
Yeah.
A man's word is his word. And that's just the way it is. And that's what you survive major crises in life. Don't break your word. Absolutely. Well, they broke it to me. Absolutely. And they came at me wrong. So like I said, I didn't have those guys grabbed and arrested that night. I took that load and turned them back. And I just said, look, we're getting heated up here. Get it the hell out of the neighborhood. I'll be in touch. And the next day I walked in and presented my case.
And took it on your shoulders. Wow.
They were totally blown away seeing Hal Bradley walking into the U.S. Attorney's.
I bet, man.
I can only imagine.
So yeah, that's
just life.
That's some gangster shit. It's some gangster shit. So did you feel like at that moment or sometime in that time frame that this is your opportunity to make it right? All the stuff you were doing. Is that kind of where you were?
That was the reason I walked in.
Okay.
I could have gone down and gone to war.
Yeah.
It wasn't about going to war. It's about raising babies in an environment. My God, I owned several companies at that time, as the records indicate. And my life was very good.
Yeah.
I didn't want to raise my kids in a drug empire.
Yeah.
And my world was very dangerous. And when you read the book, you'll understand a lot more. People are getting hit all the time, especially people my level that are running around with carloads of millions in cash.
Yeah.
At any given moment, some other faction can come in and make a decision to not only rip it off, but to try to acquire territory.
So did the family change your kind of view as far as your value of your life and what was worth it and when it wasn't? Did that help with that? Or
that's a good question. I don't really know how to answer it. Looking at my little baby boy crawling across the floor with a bottle in his mouth was a turning point.
Yeah, that's
okay.
I had about $3 million on me that night. And I was thinking, well, I can go ahead and head down to Durango. We know a plastic surgeon. I can get change up and I can just vanish for a while. Because back in those years in the 80s, you could still get away with stuff like that.
Yeah.
Now we have face ident and all that stuff.
Oh, yeah.
Excuse me. So it was my son that changed my whole life right there, seeing him. So I had no plan to walk in and do it. I was understood that I was out of it.
Right.
But they don't let an asset like that, that's a generation into their world, change his life. And I've never met another that had the opportunity to walk.
It's incredible.
I just felt
it's
that it was
incredible.
time.
I'm an 80s kid. I mean, I was born in 73. And when I grew up, Miami Vice was really cool. And I remember seeing Scarface when I was when it first came out and stuff. And I heard on the news all the drug trafficking down in Florida and all that stuff. Were you directly involved in any of that stuff, or were you more coming up this area?
I've actually been to El Rio Negro, right outside of Medellin. And I was down there on an airstrip with a friend of mine picking up loads in Colombia from the Medellin drug cartel. But that wasn't me, that was him.
Okay.
That's the closest I ever got to it. But my friend was trying to get me hooked up down there because I had credentials. What we call our credentials is verifiable resources of very famous people that actively knew that I was active at that time in history. And he was trying to get me to get involved with doing shipments from Colombia. So I went with him. I went down to check it out. Why not? Heck, I'm 26 or 27 years old. Looks like a fun deal.
Aaron, what were you doing when you were 26 or 27 years old?
I wasn't doing that.
Well, I was shoving kilos of cocaine into my airplane by then anyway, but I was going all the way to Colombia. Why not? It's a free ride. Might as well check it out type stuff. And, you have to realize it's just crazy times, and everybody was caught up in those crazy times. And a lot of the movies that we, as the elders of that era, watch on TV today, we go, I remember when we used to hang out and eat lobster tails with him and bang all these hookers here. I mean, do all these wonderful things that the life brought 26-year-old guys that are filthy, stinking rich. The money was coming in so fast. At one time, I remember tearing the sheetrock off the walls in bedrooms and filling the walls full of money.
Yeah, that's in Cesario.
Wow.
Cesario. Yeah, in that movie.
Cesario,
yeah. Oh,
we couldn't spend it fast enough, and that's all true.
Man.
We're sending friends out, with cases and cases of $5 and $10 bills because it would be so much money that we couldn't even cram it into cars to get it south. So we'd have people out there 2 or 3 days at a time making, 50s and 100s for us, so we could fit the money.
Just to make it smaller.
My goodness.
It was just, I never sold drugs on the streets or never did any of that kind of stuff. Until you'll read later in the book about the cartel finding me up here a few years ago and what they put me through, but I don't want to let that go on.
You got to leave some. What I find really, really amazing about all of this that you're talking about is when you talk about your baby with the bottle making you think differently and changing.
It was new life.
Yeah.
It was new life.
Yeah, but that's something that's different from you, where we've all experienced, that moment when you see that baby that you have, and it does make you think differently. But yours is such an extreme. Yeah, like it's just crazy. Well, but go ahead.
I get that. I grew up my mother was a den mother. I grew up in the Cub Scouts, later in the Boy Scouts. Wow. I grew up going to the military. I did all the steps that good, decent people do. Mm-hmm. And I never looked at my village down there as being bad or evil or anything, because these were simple peasant people that lived in adobe houses and wore very, very poor peasant clothing. And they were the people that accepted me into any home in that village. I was loved and coddled. I didn't speak their language. They didn't speak mine, but they took care of me and brought me in like a child of their own. And that's why I say today, aquí en su corazón, vive la sangre de la ciudad. My heart does pump the blood of that village, and it forever will.
Yeah,
it's your family.
It was so beautiful because it was so open and honest. And when I would ride my burro along the poppy fields, and I'd see the elders and the young people out there with their knives cutting the poppy bulbs and harvesting the sap, I didn't know that it was what they were doing. That was just part of what everybody did.
Yeah,
but you have to understand, in World War II, and this is important and significant. This was told to me by a drug lord in Sinaloa, Mexico. He says, my grandfather during World War II was approached by the Department of Defense to grow poppies down here in Mexico, as were many other farmers, for the purpose of creating the opium base that could be converted into morphine and flown to Europe and to the South Pacific Campaign to treat our soldiers in World War II that were being, shot and wounded and all those type of things. So actually what we did is we were under contract with the Department of State Department of Defense. What happened was after World War II, nobody went back down there and retrained them to grow something else. So there is your heroin epidemic.
That's how it happened.
And that's how it started.
Wow.
Thanks, America. I did it again.
Yeah.
That is crazy.
I actually knew people involved in the Air America thing, brother. I worked with CIA down there, the NSA, of course, DEA, ATF, U.S. Customs, all of it. Just wherever you fit in, when an operation would come that I fit into that profile, I'd be flown down and I'd go out on a mission. I did 17 years of it when I finally got out of it 4 years ago. Wow. Just I couldn't serve. They just grabbed Chapo Guzman, taking him up to do an extradition stateside. I was down there that week, and the entire cartel just exploded into a whole bunch of mini cartels. And I mean, they were shooting. I was hidden under a house, two houses away, where there was automatic weapons fire taking people out. Mm-hmm. And it took them a day and a half to get me in the back of a car and smuggle me out of the area to get me on a plane. I flew over to Tijuana and walked across the border, and I was met by my team, a U.S. Customs team at that time, and did my debriefing. And the next day I rescinded my contract and said, I'm just too old for it. Wow. But I've had hundreds of experiences like that where I would get out and survive. But, the money was good. It was blood money and bounty money, and work 3 days, make $60,000, under the table under another identity. And that's your money, and that's what you get because you came back alive. Yeah. And I have known people, a few other contractors like me that aren't here today. Wow. They didn't get out alive.
Oh, so man. You said, earlier you said something that it was recently where something happened.
Yeah, about 2 years ago in June of 2020, I was hit out back of my house here in Everett. It was the man that hit me. He was a sicario. He was a trained assassin for the cartel. And they found me. I made a lot of enemies in my 17 years of working for my country.
Yeah.
And I'm proud of the work that I did. I feel very honored that I was able to do the work that I did. And but when you take down people of that magnitude in their countries, they come up here and they find you.
Yeah, made enemies. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I assessed all that, and I've never been a coward in my life over anything. So I just factored that as a possibility. Well, they got me out and back here, and I don't know how long I was unconscious or anything. I just know that somehow it felt like a lightning bolt went through my body, and I kind of rejuvenated. And I was able to crawl to the door of one of my tenants here. And this was probably about 1 a.m, near as I can assess. And I knocked on their door, and they came out, and they freaked out. Of course, I'm just a bloody mess.
Oh, God, yeah.
And they 911 today and got me to my son upstairs here. And he's crying and said, my dad's dying. I mean, there were chunks out of my head that were carved out of my head and everything. It was pretty gruesome for people that have never seen things like that.
Yeah.
I mean, I've watched heads get cut off. It's just part of the world that I came up in, but it really disturbed me to see the look in my son's eye as I was fading in and out of consciousness.
I bet.
But and they came back twice after that when I got out of the hospital and made it. And I respect that. Those are part of what goes with making. Yeah, it's just part of the world that I spent most of my life in.
But you made it, so that must mean that you're needed here for whatever reason. Like
this is my 19th year working in trap houses and homeless camps. It's a pretty colorful world that I have,
and that's work that's so needed. It's so vital.
Yeah, it's an honor to serve the afflicted. I absolutely love every one of them. I had another heroin overdose brought here about 3 weeks ago, and my Narcan kits were provided to me by the VA hospital because I'm a 45-year patient now with VA. And it's really cool. My doctors work with me. Everybody down there knows that I'm in these dope houses, and I'm sitting around watching 3 people share the same needle. And instead of judging them, I go there and show them courtesy and compassion as an example. Who the heck are we to judge? And who the heck is someone like me, who was a drug kingpin, to ever look down on another person in life ever again? No matter how many years that's been 28 years, guys. 28 years ago when I walked in.
Wow.
So it's a pretty remarkable journey.
It is. So
God builds warriors out of bad things. He builds warriors.
The way I talk on this show is pretty blunt, but you're a fucking soldier, man.
I appreciate that. I'm a soldier doing the right kind of soldiering now.
That's what I'm saying. And that transition that you made. So you're now you're a pastor, is that correct?
Oh yeah.
Okay, so you've got a doctorate in what is it?
My doctorate's in Christian pastoral counseling. I have a master's degree in metaphysics.
Okay.
My bachelor's is metaphysical sciences, and my associate's is in chaplaincy. I'm also a certified hospice chaplain.
Yeah.
Just in January 21st of this year, became senior chaplain. But I was a senior pastor of my own church in 2004, 5, and 6 in Granite Falls, our church ministries. I was installed by the bishop who ordained me after I came out of prison. And I was also ordained when I graduated seminary in prison. So yeah, I've been doing this a long, long time.
Guess so.
And
wow,
it was really weird. The books I'm writing now are action, adventure, drama books. They're about a pastor who's, going to a revival or whatever, and the phone rings and he's on a flight to Bogota, getting ready to go on another mission. And that's exactly how I lived 17 years of my life. I would be preparing, for my Sunday presentation to my own congregation. And I get a call in the middle of the week, say, man, you're out of here right now, brother. We got something going on in Costa Rica. Boom, I'm going down there to sit in a whorehouse and buy 500 kilos of cocaine. And the next day, catch a plane to fly back up here to preach the gospel of Christ to my congregation members. And that's why Hollywood really loved the story.
Yeah.
Because it's true.
Yeah.
It's true. It's absolutely. Hey, I didn't say I was taking advantage of the women. I simply said I'd be sitting in those environments.
I'm with you.
I understand completely.
Yeah,
Man.
thank you. Thanks, Chuck.
I got your back.
Yeah, I appreciate it.
Just because we've been bad at one point doesn't mean we're dirty in all kinds of ways.
I think it's interesting how God works. The moment of my calling was October 19th, 1994 at 3:30 in the afternoon, and I was in a prison cell. This before my wife died, and she came to me and said, I didn't marry the damn mafia. I'm divorcing you to get you away from our kids. Mm-hmm. And at that same time, I'd had a contract put on my life in a federal courtroom that afternoon. And I'm sitting there getting ready to head to prison for 8 years. And it was very overwhelming. And in that moment, I just couldn't take it anymore. And I dropped to my knees and I just said, God, you got to help me through this moment. And it was like, kind of like what happened to Saul on the road to Damascus, where God put the scales on his eyes and took him to the house of Ananias, where they were lifted off and he was no longer Saul. He was the Apostle Paul. So I believe in the true transformation, which is what I actually had. It wasn't a weakness. It wasn't a fear. It was something needed to change and transform into something greater. And actually, 2 prisoners came in that room, one on each side of me, kneeling, putting a hand on my shoulders and praying fervently with me in that moment of my true transition.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
And after that happened, like I quit cussing, I quit carrying anger. A lot of things change. And Paul's second epistle that he wrote to the Corinthians in the 5th chapter, he says, if you become this new creation in life when you receive this life. And boy, it was really true, because I did transform. And I don't, even the man that hit me, out here and left me for dead.
Just going to ask you that.
Yeah, I have nothing but compassion and love and understanding, because I spent 15 years of my life in that world, and he doesn't have no say in what he's doing.
Yeah.
He does it, or they're going to pull his wife and kids out in front of him and chop their heads off.
He's got to do it.
We've all seen stuff like that. So we know that these aren't fake statements that are being made to impress somebody.
Right.
These are actually surviving an existence, a shadow world, if you will, that good people like you guys really don't even know anything about it. No. I can look at you and tell.
No, and I actually don't know what I would do if I knew anything about that, actually. Like, it's crazy.
It's on another level.
It is.
Yeah, it's very real, and it's here today. I know families here. I've been doing the trap houses here in Everett. This is my 16th year here. And then the others I did working on my dissertation in Seattle. But I've had 2 Latino families come here going, Pastor, they're holding my family down there, and they're coming up here and giving me drugs and telling me to find people, or they're going to kill my family. What do I do? And all I can do is take them into prayer, because I'm not going to guide them to do anything. Their circumstance is different than my circumstance was. They're in a foreign country trying to make a good life. They're working in restaurants or hotels or cleaning rich people's houses or whatever, but they're honest people doing honest work. And they're sending that money back to support their families down there in impoverished regions of that country. But their families get grabbed and snapped up, and they're flat out put in this situation. This is the shadow world of the drug cartels, and the impact that it has on so many people up here. It's just amazing. And like the sex trafficking trade, I've worked cases involving that, and feels really good to take somebody out that's marketing little 15-year-old girls, and shipping them out of different countries. And I've been around those kind of cases, and I've been around those kind of people. So I thank God daily for the 17 years I was able to be a part of rescuing people that are in those situations. And there's no words to describe it. When you open up a container and you look inside and you see about a third of them are dead bodies, because they've been locked in a container and they just came in from China, and you're down in the canal. And the other ones you get out, they're near death. And good God, it's just, it's such a world that we live in that we don't really recognize, because we don't see it. What do you guys see? You might see somebody on drugs, or somebody, maybe in prostitution or something like that. That doesn't even come close to the element that controls and owns and is empowered by all of that.
Yeah.
That was my world. I've never had any street experience ever. First time I ever did cocaine, I was given a half a pound that was brought to me at Sacramento City College. And the guy says, hey, do you want to try this and see what you can do with it? And that time I was smuggling marijuana. And I said, yeah, okay, whatever. I made 20 grand in a weekend at a party, and I'm going, oh my God, I just found my new love. And the next deal I did was 5 kilos. And that's the smallest cocaine deal I've ever done in my life. From that point on, it was going down and packing our Cessnas or packing our cars, and Jesus, God Almighty, it was just unbelievable. It was unbelievable.
It's
so glad you guys all missed it.
Me too, actually, because that's scary shit.
Very addicting lifestyle.
Yeah, I know it's so scary. I mean, even hearing your story right now, I get so many questions for you. It's like little things.
I'm glad you do.
I'm one of the little guys, like the little question guys, like the little things, like Right now, when you're at home and you've got your family around you, do you worry about them still? Do you have a worry? Are you okay?
I have my 32-year-old son living here. My wife died, as I told you guys, of a heart attack.
Yes.
And my daughters are gone, and it's just me and him, and he's a little trooper himself in his own right. But, you know, the flex that I have here, I have the entire second story upstairs, and it's all secured, and there's no one going to get in here easily. But I don't live under that type of a paranoia anyway.
You're not looking over your shoulder, basically.
No, I do. I'm observant to all things in my environment, but I'm also a 17-year contractor that did nothing but look over his shoulder.
Right.
I know what to look for. I know how to spot cars. As I said, my private investigation agency was Surveillance Services Northwest. The license is on file in Olympia. If anybody cares to check it, that's fine. But, you know, I have all of those years and surviving 15 years in the drug cartels. Right. And that's phenomenal, especially for a gabacho, a gringo, a white guy. Mm-hmm. I was never white to them. I grew up in a village. The life of that type of culture imprinted on me young in life. And I've always been grateful that I did, because they certainly love their families in a lot different way than what I am exposed to up here and what I witness up here. Down there, it's pure. You know, it's just pure.
Yeah.
They have nothing, you know, except the drug lords, of course. They have a lot of things.
Like the people who raised you, the only thing they had was each other and the love and the community.
Yeah.
Yes, precisely. You know, I remember in the village in 1969, the biggest thing was getting out of the mine where I was at the mining camp where I stayed. I was just above the village. And to go down there on Sundays, and they had this big pool, and the women would be washing clothes in the stream that went into the pool. And we'd all be out there swimming in the water, and they'd have barbecues going on, and they would have mariachi playing music, and the older guys would be drinking beers and shots of tequila. And I mean, it was so simple and so basic and so pure.
Mm-hmm.
And I had, you know, a year and a half of that every single weekend to be exposed to the cultural love. And it was really amazing. So it was a no-brainer when my compadre came to me and says, "Hey, man," he says, "let's get a vehicle down here and we'll put some compartments in it. And well, let's throw 100 kilos in a car and see what we can do with it, okay?" And yeah, sure, whatever you say. And
mm-hmm.
had no problem driving it across the border. They trained me on how to do crossings. And back in early 1970s, 74, 75, 76, it wasn't like it is today going through the crossings. Right. You know, now it's just, Jesus, forget it. You know, they've got everything. They're going to get you, you know, pretty much.
Those frog guys.
Yeah, they got everything, brother. You know, they have x-ray machines that they drive vehicles through, and they spot the compartments. They have dogs that are specifically trained, as you well know. We used to take our kilos when we were running it, and we would dip them in a liquid chili oil. And when the oil would dry and harden on the outside, nothing could smell through it.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know how they ever figured, but then they invented the x-ray machines, and that's how they curbed that type of, because I never got busted once, and I ran that border. Oh my God, I can't even imagine how many times. Sometimes twice in a month, and I did it for 6-7 years. I loved it. It was just a blast.
It's wow.
Every time you go through, you make, yeah, it was beyond rush. Because you also smiling all the way back to Central California from Arizona, and you're going, God, I'm going to make $100,000 this week, you know, and you're 24, 25 years old. That's a lot of money back in the 70s. Yeah, it was. And then the Coke years came, and it turned into millions. Mm-hmm. I mean, it was just, like I said, we literally had to rip walls out of houses to hide the money. We could not spend it fast enough.
Wow, man.
But those days are gone. Those years are gone.
But you've got you got certain things out of that past. Like you're adamant about speaking about that family feeling you had there.
Absolutely.
Some of those values that you saw them have, even though you guys could do some crooked shit on the time once in a while, there was still this bond of this family that you made with them.
Always will be. Most of my friends are now dead and gone. I just lost another brother here on the 29th of June. That's been with me 45 years.
Oh, man.
And he's gone, and it's kind of sad. I'm going to be 68 years old in October. You know, when you start hitting the age I'm at and approaching it, the lifestyle that we had, guys either assassinated, in prison for life, or, you know, whatever.
Yeah.
But, there's not many of us left around. just part of it. So I figure what I'll do to my dying breath and my dying day is serve the kingdom, be there for the people that need me to be there in the right way, and not brag about things or have an ego trip going on. And none of that matters when you're sitting with somebody that's, strung out on heroin and they're trading their flesh for $10 hits all day long.
Yeah, brother.
They need to see an example, and they need to know that they're worth something and they mean something. And that is where I'm totally at.
It's beautiful.
I love every one of them. I love every one of them.
It's fucking beautiful, man. And that's that. I'm sorry, Sam. Sam's crying.
Sam can't stop crying. She's been crying for 5 minutes straight now.
It's thriving. I think you said it was thriving under horrific experiences. And
extreme crisis events create extreme crisis counselors. I do believe that. Yeah. How can you talk to somebody about something horrific? My book 3 that I'm doing right now, guys, it's called Surviving a Double Life. And it's going to be coming out here in a few months. And I'm also working on a 4th book at the same time. But this is about people that have come through. And I mean, one of them that I just interviewed, it wasn't Jeffrey Dahmer. Who was Ted Bundy. She survived Ted Bundy when she was 13. She's my age now.
Shit.
And kidnapped by Ted Bundy. And, these are the kind of stories that I've been putting in. And these are survivors. And where is their life today? This lady ended up becoming a pharmacist and spent, almost 40 years in her career after she survived it. So it doesn't mean that we have to set ourselves up for failure when something extreme happens to us.
Yes.
What we have to do is look at the options that are laid out before us and take advantage of the things that can manifest a better life for us as a result of surviving.
And people have such a hard time with it, though. They have a hard time. I mean, everybody's had something to them that has been horrific or tragic in their life, one way or another.
Sure. Everybody knows.
Yeah, it's all perspective, right? I mean, I consider and think of, like, you make everything I've been through that I found horrific like nothing, because of the stuff in your story. No, I know you don't.
But to you.
But to me, when I hear your story, it gives me inspiration, because I'm like, well, fuck, if Dr. Hal went through all that shit and I'm crying here or feeling all messed up or bad or can't get through something, and it's not even on that level. If he could get through that, I can do it. That's how I look at stuff.
Well, that's the idea. And thank you very much for putting it that way, brother, because that's exactly what the intent of the books, the intent of my TV series, they're really dramatized. I've read the screenplays already, and it's pretty amazing how they take, and create. I mean, this is going to be really exciting.
Yeah, I'd write it too.
The point is that maybe it will still benefit somebody. It's going to be done like Ozark.
Oh,
that'll give you an idea.
Oh yeah, yes. Oh gosh.
And you can actually say on your show that you actually had that guy on your air now.
And I will too. I'll say it all day long. I'll be posting it all day long. I had Dr. Hal on here. I knew it.
You have my permission to use all this information.
I really think.
Just I think the thing that we need to all look back in these days that we find that ourselves in right now is God through Jesus only asked 2 things and 2 things only. Okay, He asked us that we love God the Father before everything. But you know what, brother? He asks that you and I love one another.
Mm-hmm.
Now, why do we make that so hard, guys? Why is that such a conflict?
That's what I want to know.
And see, and I'm glad you're here
because that man is born of a sinful nature. That's the reason why.
Right.
Yeah, and I go back and forth with Chuck all the time because he's a man of faith. He's a man of faith.
Oh, hi, Chuck. I love it, brother.
Yes, he is. He is. I struggle with it, to be honest with you. I go back and forth. And I do. And there's been many moments in my life where I'm like, well, I'll say it. I'm just like, oh, fuck God. He's screwing me over right now. Blah, 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 blah. That's how I felt. And then there'll be another day where I'll actually find myself looking up in the sky and I'll be like, it's a good day today. And I feel good. And it's weird. So I always go back and forth. And I know Sam's a lot like me too. She's very spiritual.
I'm very spiritual.
She's pulled.
I'm not religious.
No, but she's pulled in a way that
I'm not either, and I'm a pastor.
Yeah, that's kind of it.
Yeah, it's such a strange thing to wrap your head around. So it's all about, to me, how someone puts something.
Guys, give me 1 second.
Oh yeah, sure, absolutely. Yeah. We'll keep talking. He's taking a break real quick.
Yeah, I know, but he just yelled, "Come in!" And what's going on with him lately? I'm wondering if we should be paying attention in case we need to witness something.
Wow,
I can't freaking
He did just yell, "Come in," didn't he?
Sam, you okay?
No.
And I don't have any tissues to give her, Chris.
No, we're going to talk.
I should have brought a box of tissues.
I know, I don't have any.
Where's my tissues, Chuck?
I'm sorry, they're at the other studio in Kitsap County.
It's
I'm back, guys. Apologize for that.
No, you're totally
you're
fine. I was just trying to catch up with Sam here because she's got a lot of tears. So, Sam, what are you feeling like? What's going on? What's hitting you?
Everything's all. Thanks for not having tissues for me, Chuck.
Yeah, sorry, Chuck.
Wrong studio, guys. I'm sorry. I didn't.
Sam, what is hitting you?
Well, just all of it. The compassion and the stuff about family and the simplicity of it, and just, and then the craziness of what he's been through and what he's seen, and his ability to just be compassionate to people that most people in the world cannot have compassion for.
Yeah, not one that tried to kill him.
It's just crazy. It's all crazy. And then it touched me a lot when you talked about the Narcan and the heroin addicts, because I lost my brother, my little brother, and
I'm very sorry to hear that, Sam.
Thank you.
Yeah,
one thing he didn't get a lot of was compassion and understanding, and they need that so much. So it's important. It's important, and you're saving people's lives with it, because they don't all make it.
Yeah, man.
Well, I believe that if we say that we love people, that we also need to be the example and the proof and the wisdom. I can't even count the amount of times I've sat in a rainstorm in the middle of the night in downtown Seattle in an alley with my arm wrapped around somebody that was shaking so bad I thought they were going to have a heart attack from shaking so bad. And just to know that a stranger that they'd never seen before in their life had the compassion to come and sit with them and not worry about how they smelled, or not worry about how they rambled, or not worry about any of those things at all, but to see another living, breathing person that's going through suffering some kind of event. I used to know an 11 and later 12-year-old prostitute that worked out there by Pioneer Square. And we all knew her, and we all looked out for her, and we all loved her. And her mother was a heroin addict, and she was out there selling herself to help keep her mother high.
Oh, man.
And we never judged her. I used to bring her hot cocoa when I'd find her, because I would always work the night until sunup, right? And she'd be sitting there at 4th and Yesler at the bus stop there every single time. That was her spot. Mm-hmm. And then one day she disappeared, and none of us know what happened to her, and we never heard from her again. And of course, we all think, what happens to people in those situations?
Right.
But so you never know. You never know where that path is going to take you, and who you might influence and who you might change. I had a lady brought here that had just been gang raped by 5 guys. She was left unconscious, and she was brought to my house from the camp. And you remember that one, Randy, don't you? Yeah, 2 years ago. It's in my book, actually. She came back and gave a testimony, but I brought her in the house, kept her here for a day and a half. I did her laundry, fed her a meal, let her wrap herself up on a couch where she knew she wasn't going to get violated, or she could just tell that she was in an okay kind of a place for that moment in her life. Well, 2 years ago when I completed book 1, she came back and she had a baby and a husband. She was no longer an addict. She was no longer a prostitute. They were buying their own home. They were in love, and they were decent people. And she said, all of this because somebody took care of me, and I didn't have to trade my flesh for them doing something for me. So you never know. And when you do enough of those I could tell you stories like that go back 19 years. Sometimes a stranger in the night puts an arm around a stranger, and a whole entire existence occurs and becomes created. And I'm not a religious man. I am a pastor, and I don't think Chuck is a religious man either. We understand that statement, Sam, very well, and honor you for it. I'm just a follower and a believer, and I'm a servant, and that's just exactly how I look at it every day. I know that I was transformed by the renewing of my mind. I spent over 10 years in the Bible, going through Bible colleges and all that, so I can spout out scriptures all day long. But I don't go out there on a street corner and beat people to death with the Bible. Yeah. I go out there every Friday. I feed people through the Salvation Army. They load my vehicles. I've been doing it for a long time. And I go to the alleys and I hit the trap houses and the camps, and everybody comes out because they take their food cards and they trade it for heroin. Yeah. So they starve all month because, we all know the hustle.
Yeah.
Man.
So I still think that they need to eat.
Yeah, they do. They do.
And it gives me a chance to, by example, show people that someone who had lived such a horrific life and had been such a really bad person and damaged not a person here and there, the quantity of drugs that I was moving damaged thousands of people. So, I was this ultimate sinner. And I carry that, and I carry that deeply, and I will carry that till the day I die. That I owe, and I can't pay any of you folks back enough. I'll never be able to. But what I can do every day is try to go forth and maybe by example, lift up that one other person who will someday come by here and knock on the door with tears in their eyes that their life was transformed that night.
Yeah.
And folks, is there anything greater than that?
No.
No, there isn't.
No.
There isn't, is there?
There really isn't.
There is not.
No,
I'm going to fire up my cigarette, bro. I saw you smoking.
Oh yeah, I hit my vape all the time. I got
vapor,
to.
yeah.
You please do.
Thanks.
It's
incredible.
It's so heroic.
I can't
you
even
guys.
take it.
And I know I don't even think Dr. Hal doesn't need me to tell him that, but it's heroic because most people are afraid. They're scared. They're terrified. I mean, just listening to him talking about going up to the person that you knew and putting your arm around that person.
Oh yeah.
And being there for him.
Many times.
And not worrying about the smell or anything like that, not judging them, and just being there for them. I mean, I can't think of one person, maybe Chuck and Sam, because they have that in them. They could do it.
Okay, well, my dad, remember?
Yes, yeah, because your dad was homeless that way. Yeah, but it's just that thing to be able to step outside of what the norm is, and go through that membrane, and then do something like you're doing. It's absolutely heroic. Because I can tell you, brother, this. Not many people will.
No.
Not many people help. They don't care.
No.
They look the other way. They just ignore it.
Well, look at the areas you go to, and the amount of people that walk on those streets every day.
This marks my 20th year of doing it, and to this day, I don't take volunteers with me. It's not the type of an outreach service that I could expose anybody to, because people in the crack houses and stuff, they're paranoid.
Yeah.
They'll kill you.
Oh,
I mean,
yeah.
they're nuts. I've been assaulted several times over the years, but after a while, the word gets out there. And I can remember the last time I went through an episode like that, where everybody in the house jumped up and slammed this guy down and said, "Man, you ain't touching our pastor." High on meth.
got his back.
They had my back because they knew I wasn't some undercover narc or somebody trying to play a game. They knew by example, guys.
Yeah.
I earned it. That's right, Sam.
Yeah.
And it has nothing to do with ego and pride. And you need to remove those two things as you climb the ladder of servitude early on, because if you don't, it will destroy your ministry.
Mm-hmm.
You need to do it for the right reasons, and that's to give God glory, not yourself, ever.
Yeah.
That's why I like working in nighttime when people didn't even know who sat down and gave them that cup of hot cocoa or gave them a blanket to put around their shoulders in the rain. And those kind of things mean more to me by far than anything, because it's transitional. And it's all good.
Yeah.
And
you got a white beard. It's like Santa Claus. You bring him.
Oh, stop!
It's cool shit. It's bad. If you're walking away and
they're down, man. I'm an old scooter tramp, man. You haven't seen the book, but it shows my patch on my back. I ran in the Red and Gold Nation for years, and I mean, I've been through all those stages, and to me, every one of them was like going through another university. I loved being a patch holder. I loved tooling down the road with several hundred brothers. I loved all of that life. It was insane, but. And at the same time, I was jumping off on missions, and I can remember the president of the Banditos came to me and he goes, "Brother," he says, "we all know you're cool and a good standing." He said, "but you got a badge in your wallet, man." He says, and he says, so that day I walked away, but I left in good standing, not in bad standing, because everybody knew I was cool.
Yeah.
But I had 3.5 years in it, and I really enjoyed getting that bottom rocker and being all I could be,
I bet. But you've seen the horrors of this world, and that helps you with the horrors of the world. I have. If that makes sense. Yeah. He doesn't have that fear. He doesn't have that scared.
Well, I'm honest. The honesty, I never hid what I did. I was a departmental contractor, when I got patched in and all that. And I had the PI agency at the time, which was a benefit to the motorcycle club that I was riding with. And we could, check people out and find out, where they were coming from early on to make sure that informants of things didn't infiltrate. As the way I looked at it was I would be saving a life, by making sure somebody didn't come in.
Well,
that was dirty.
You'd have to look at it
I did. And the Department of Justice told me when I was riding, when I got patched in, they said, "Hey man, that's your business and all that. We're never going to ask you to look in on anything. That's your own life." They respected it totally, because I would have turned my patch in that day if I would have been asked to do something like that. I would never be dishonest to anybody.
Right.
It's not the world I came in. But I think it's pretty cool. I even had a couple brothers in the Red and Gold that pulled me over on the side and said, "Man, can you hook me up and let me get into that work you do? That's pretty cool, bro." But anyway,
as cool as you think it is, it takes a lot more history to get there.
Yeah. Yeah, you don't ask, you get recruited in that world.
Right. Yeah. What an amazing story. And what you're doing right now is, well, I'll say it, Chuck. It's like God's work.
God's work.
It's God's work.
It's not like it.
It's
you
God's
keep
work.
using that term.
It's
It's not like,
because I don't
he wasn't
talk that
like
way.
one of the top. He was the top.
He was
it's
the
not
top.
like God's work. It's just God's work.
All right, I'm trying here. Because it's amazing, and it hits me on different levels because I put myself in your shoes back then, and I'm like, man, I'm such a pussy.
No, but you're not. Everybody walks a different journey, brother.
Yeah.
And you know what? When we all combine our journeys together, it creates something wonderful and something beautiful. As we escalate in years in life, we start prioritizing with different things, and that's exactly what happened to my life. You know, seeing a little kid crawling across the front room floor with a bottle in their mouth, that was far more precious to me than the mountains of money and the power that I had over other people. It all went away in a heartbeat.
I always say it.
These are transformative moments.
Yeah, I always say flip the fucking script. Flip your script. You know, if you're down and about, flip it, turn it, use it, figure it out. There's a way. There's always a way.
There's always a way.
There's always a way, and you found it, man. Damn.
Well, listen, guys, be sure to read Crisis Victory 2. Yes. And if I can say it on your station here, go to crisisvictory2.com. Crisisvictory2.com. And right now on my ebook, I'm doing it for only 95 cents this week because we're running bestseller campaigns right now with Amazon. Okay. So between now and Saturday, for 99 cents on ebook, someone can get it. And then you forever got it. And you really should read the story because it is a magnificent story of sin to redemption. I don't care that it's me in the book. What I care about is the journey of somebody who had gone through so many things, came out in the end and became a humbled servant, and has been that way and will be forever.
And anybody can get something out of that story, out of your journey.
Yeah. Sam, easily. I have thousands of followers and thousands of copies have been sold. And
I don't doubt it.
Every single day, my phone blows up with people, and they write book reviews. I've never had anything lower than a 4.5 on a 5-star rating. And everything else has been 5-star up to this date. So that means that it's purposeful.
It does.
And it's wonderful.
You're getting something out
of it. Anyway, hey guys, I love you and God bless you. And I'll close this in a quick prayer, and then I think we're over our hour. So are you guys good to go?
I can't believe it. I mean, it went by so fast.
Yeah, it went by fast.
Yeah, I am submitting closing the show like I usually do to you for a prayer. I'm going to ask for one favor though.
Absolutely.
Hal, I'd like you to include my daughter Regan, who is also following God's work. She just got back from the Ukraine 3 weeks ago before the war started.
Oh, I'm so glad she's here. Thank you for
But she is actually following, and in 2 weeks she'll be ministering to the churches of the area because she's getting ready to become a staff member for YWAM. And she's trying to go through everything to try and get that going for her in her life. So now it's a debate as to whether she's going to go to Honolulu or back to Montana to train and teach. So we'll see.
That's fabulous, Chuck. Good. I'm really happy for you that you've got a servant out there in your family that's doing that kind of work. And I'm really glad that she's in from the Ukraine right now. Things are really bad over there, and we need to pray for that too. So let's just take a moment, guys, and close this thing out in proper fashion.
Let's do it, Hal.
Let's do it.
My phone does that.
It's perfect timing. It's perfect timing.
That's him.
That's God's will.
Father, as we come to your throne of grace, we plead the intercessory blood of Jesus, and we just want to take this moment to give thanks unto you, O Lord, for surviving so many things, each and every one of us, and not only to survive and come through the storms, but to be there for those on the other side as we progress and grow, and by example show that no matter what entails us or impales us, Lord, we can come out stronger for it. I'd like to lift up Brother Chuck's daughter and give thanks that not only is she back here, but she's ready to continue on in her ministerial journey. I'd like to bless all those that are with her on that journey. And most of all, Lord, I'd like to ask a blessing on this podcast platform here, that you will grow them and expand them and turn them into a mighty representation of the Pacific Northwest. And as we all close out in prayer today, we just want to thank you for the sunny days as well as the rainy days, because any days are better than no days. So may God be with you all, and in his grace and in his peace, we will close. Amen.
Amen.
Hallelujah. I loved it. I love you guys. I really do.
We love you too.
And after I get the next books out or something, maybe I'll contact you. We can come back again and
please
do a different strategy and a different story.
I'll have my tissues.
Yes, bring your tissues.
Nice to meet you, Sam and Chuck and Aaron.
So much.
Dr. Hal, it's a pleasure. It's an honor, actually.
Yeah.
Stay hard, brother. Stay
All right.
hard.
God
All right.
bless.
You too, my man. All right, guys.
And
We'll
God
see
bless
everybody
you.
later.
remember, everybody, think hard. Wow, because you're thinking anyway.
Stay hard, brother. It's not an easy world.
Right. It's not.
Take care, my man.
Good
Thank
night,
you.
you guys.
All right,
Take care.
Bye. Thank you so much. For those of you that want to be a guest on Around the Reel, please email Sam at aroundthereal253@gmail.com.
That's aroundthereal253@gmail.com.
Not Messenger. Do not message Aaron on Messenger, because then he has to send you a message that says email Sam at aroundthereal253@gmail.com.
That's aroundthereal253@gmail.com.
How come they can't just message me again?
Because nobody wants to fucking talk to you.
Can anybody reach out? That's an artist, filmmaker, actor?
If you're an artist of any kind, we want to hear from you.
But we are going to vet the crap out of you.
We don't care if you make millions of dollars in Hollywood or if you're just beginning your career in the art industry. We don't care. So everybody that wants to be on Around the Reel, yes, we want you.
That's aroundthereal253@gmail.com.